Hello, and welcome to this lesson, which will show you how to get to the "so what" when delivering high-quality analysis. This is the final stage of your problem-solving toolkit, and is about taking the results of your analysis and driving to insight. From this, you can make recommendations and ultimately spur management into action. After you have finished this training, you will be able to, firstly, understand what the "so what" is and why it is important, and secondly, learn how to get to the "so what" in various stages of your project. To begin with, people have been getting to the "so what" for over 100 years. For example, Darwin recognized the importance of going beyond the obvious and stating what his analysis meant and why it was important. Survival of the fittest was Darwin's insight and conclusion that only the strongest people or things continue to live or be successful, while the others die or fail. If Darwin had simply stated his analysis and observations, then arguably he may not have been so famous. Getting to the "so what" is essentially an answer that goes beyond the obvious and tells you how to proceed. To get to the "so what", think about the CEO's perspective, or your line manager's perspective, and why they should care as you draw conclusions. As you look at the results of your analysis, ask yourself what this analysis means, and why it is important. Also, draw from your experience to get to the next order of implications and look for new and insightful knowledge. Finally, be creative. It's okay to think outside the box and bounce some ideas off the wall. Getting to the "so what" is an art, not a science, and there is no single process that will get you there. Having slides with clear "so what" guidance in the title tremendously helps to put together a good presentation and tell a story of your findings. I have even worked with executives that wrote the executive summary just by jotting down the titles of the relevant slides per section. Managers will not normally be interested in what you have been doing all day long, but what the answer to their problem is. So, avoid giving a report on your analytical activities. Tell a story instead. When driving to insight, there are 4 key success factors you need to consider. Firstly, going beyond the obvious when you are striving to get to the "so what". Secondly, building an insightful, actionable recommendation. Thirdly, iterating if needed, which means regularly refining your hypotheses or creating new ones in response to new information. And lastly, avoiding common biases and errors, which means steering clear of common pitfalls as you develop your answer. Let's look at each success factor in turn. The first key success factor relates to going beyond the obvious when you are formulating your recommendations. This entails taking a step back from your analysis and thinking about what the analysis means and why it is important. Also, draw connections from other experiences and other areas of the business, and consult your team and peers. One pragmatic tool to go beyond the obvious and get to the "so what" is the 5 whys. Use this to drill down further and gain deeper insights. The second key success factor relates to building an insightful, actionable recommendation. Your initial results after analysis are often just observations and only really show what you analyzed. An effective problem solver will draw out the key insights from the analyses and integrate them into recommendations that solve the original problem. Ensure that your recommendations are actionable, specific, and insightful, which means it spurs management to action, lays out a plan of action, and moves from discovering a problem to showing the solution. Let's look at some examples. The column on the left shows recommendations which are actionable, specific, and insightful, whereas the right column shows some less effective recommendations because one of the success parameters is missing. The third success factor when driving to insight relates to iteration, which means regularly refining your hypotheses or creating new ones in response to additional information gleaned from your analysis. New information from the project can either prove or falsify prior arguments, so it is important to go back and revisit your original hypotheses to test if they are still valid. You should keep iterating until you have the support needed for your recommendation. This means pushing the boundaries and going beyond the usual analyses, or approaching the problem from different perspectives. Let's look at an example. In this example, the original conclusion of removing sales task could improve profitability has been refined after 2 rounds of iteration. The final recommendation reads very differently to the first round. Notice how it's actionable, specific, and insightful. The fourth and final success factor relates to avoiding common biases and errors. When developing a solution, it is important to keep an open mind and see the problem through multiple lenses. While your initial thoughts and previous experiences are useful, do not let them prevent you from keeping an open mind. Steer clear of common biases and errors as you develop your answer. The slide shows some examples of these biases. Being aware of them is the first step to preventing them from appearing in your work. Can you think of any biases you may encounter as you drive to insight? In summary, getting to the so what is the final element of our problem-solving toolkit. It is about getting to the recommendations that will ultimately spur management to act to solve the problem you're facing. Driving to insight requires adherence to 4 key success factors, ranging from understanding the implications of your analysis, building an actionable recommendation, iterating if needed, and finally, avoiding common biases and errors during the whole process. Thank you for participating, and see you next time on another exciting business training lesson from Pontema.